Hello and welcome to the Scratch Brick Breaker / Pong revision lesson. So this is just a video for the learners that have been struggling to complete this project at school, that can't remember last year's lessons, or that just want to try and redo it on their own again. So to start off with, we're going to get rid of the cat over here by clicking on the little drum with the X on it there in the top right corner of the cat. We get rid of it. We do not need the cat for this game. We are going to start off by clicking on our stage over here on the bottom right, then going over to the top left and click on backdrops. Once we get here, we can see now here I have one blank backdrop, and we're going to start off by drawing ourselves three different backdrops. So the first one up here in the corner where it says backdrop number 1, I'm going to change it. It's going to be my main menu. Okay, that is going to be my first background. Then I'm going to select the square. I'm going to go over to fill to choose my colors. I'm going to give it a nice fade effect. I'm going to put green on this side and a nice darker green on the other side. Then once I draw my square, I have a nice background. You can see the background appear here over on the right hand side. Okay, so there we have it for our first one. Now, to get my second backdrop, all I need to do, I hover my mouse over the button here in the bottom left. I click on the paintbrush to get a new backdrop. I erase the name. The second one is going to be Brick Breaker. Okay, we go again. We have already selected our square. I'm going to change up the colors so that I have a better indication of when I go to which background. I'm going to give it a different fade effect, draw my square. You can see it appear over on the right hand side. Okay, then we follow the same steps again. We go to the bottom left, we hover our mouse over it. We do not click. Once we click on it, we go to the backdrops. Now you can use the backdrops that are in the program, but I would much rather prefer you being creative and drawing your own backdrops. I am only giving you a simple explanation of how to make a simple background. I want you guys to be as creative as you want to be. So I go over down, go on the paintbrush, click on the square. If you do not want to make a background like I'm doing here, I can always undo that at the top. I would consider you changing it to convert to bitmap over here at the bottom. If you do that, you can always use the fill bucket to fill in your square, or now you can just use your paintbrush, make the paintbrush a little bit bigger, and then you can draw whatever you want to on the page. Okay, so this is what I mean by I want you guys to go out and be creative as much as you want to. Okay, for now, I'm going to stick with the basic one. I'm going to give it a nice, let's do dark blue to a light blue from inside to out. We fill in, and there we go. I'm also going to change this background's name to Pong. Now, for these two games, for Brick Breaker and Pong to work, we need to have goal lines. The Brick Breaker goal line needs to be at the bottom of the page. So I'm going to choose the line option. I'm going to choose a color that stands out. I'm going to put in a nice green line here at the bottom. I'm going to change the thickness to about 20 so it can be nice and big. And I draw my goal line at the bottom of the screen. You can see it appear here on the right hand side. Right. For Pong, we need two goal lines, one on the left hand side and one on the right hand side. And for this to work, those goal lines need to be different colors as well. I cannot have a pink one on this one and a pink one on that side, because then there will be no way for me to tell the program which side needs to get the score. So I'm drawing myself a purple one on the right, pink one on the left. So I'm going to have a pink and a purple score. Next up, there we have our three backgrounds. Nice and simple. If you want to label them, very straightforward. You click on the T, you click where you want to type. Firstly, we change the color. I'm just going to make it black for now. I click where I want to type. I type out what I want to type, menu, sorry. If I want to increase the font size, I'm going to click outside the block. Then I can make the words bigger, fit it inside my square. And now I have a nice label to tell myself I'm at the main menu. There's my brick breaker and there is my Pong. Okay. Now, after we've drawn our first 3 backgrounds, we now need to give in our coding. We need to add some coding for these backgrounds. I'm going to just go to my main menu. I go over to my code here in the top left corner. I click on the word code to get to all my coding blocks. And now I can start off by saying, I go to events down the left hand side. I'm going to start off the program by saying, when the green flag is clicked, what do I want to happen when I start the program? When I start the program, I want to be at the main menu because that is the starting phase of my program. So I'm going to go over to looks, the purple button, looks. I'm going to move over the first one here that says switch backdrop to Pong. And I'm going to attach it to my first block. So when the green flag is clicked, switch the backdrop to Pong. But this is not what we want. We don't want to switch it to Pong. We want to switch to the main menu. So all I do now is I click on the little triangle and I choose the main menu. So let's say I'm now on my Pong background, but I click the green flag, it'll take me to my main menu. Now, to make our lives a little bit easier later on when we're playing the game, I'm going to add in one more piece of code here. I'm going to say that when the space key is pressed, but I don't want the space key, I'm going to change it to the M. So when the M key is pressed, so when I press the letter M on my keyboard, I want the following to happen. I want the backdrop to switch to the main menu. So that I don't always have to go click on the green flag. I can be on a different button, press the M button on my keyboard, and it will switch me to the main menu. Just to make our lives a little bit easier. Okay, now, next up is drawing our 7 sprites. We are going to need 7 sprites in total. Now, for those of you that cannot remember what a sprite is going to be the things that we add into our game that needs to have its own coding. Like the buttons, like the ball for brick breaker, like the paddles that need to protect the goal lines. Those are going to be our characters in the game. They are called sprites in this program. So the first sprite that we need to make, so over here where you see sprites, I go to the little cat. I do not click on it because when I click on it, I can always choose something from the game. You're more than welcome to use anything that is given to you in the game. But as I tell you in class, I like to see your creativity. So I want you to try and draw your own one. So in order to do that, all I need to do, I go to the little cat face here at the bottom. I click on the paintbrush and I get my sprite number 1. Okay, sprite number 1 is going to be my brick breaker button. So it's going to be a button that I can click on to take me to the brick breaker game. So what do I want this button to look like? For me, it's going to be very straightforward. I just want one simple button. I'm going to give it a nice effect. Where is the colors? Give me a nice, let's say a blue. Is that blue? There. Ooh, where's blue? Is that blue? My eyes are struggling to see if that is blue or not. Let's move on to the other side. Where's the saturation? There we go. Give it a nice light blue. And I'm going to draw myself just a nice little button there. Now, what I can do is I can label this button. I can type on top of it and I can call it my brick breaker. Hey, that's not how you spell breaker. That's how you spell breaker. Apologies. My fingers are sometimes too fast for my brain. And now on here on the right hand side, I can now move the button to where I want it. I want it there, nice on the left, and I can put my other button on the right. Okay, that's done. Nice, easy, straightforward. There's my brick breaker button. Now, let's go give this button some code. So I'm going to go over to the coding in the top left corner, and I'm going to start off by saying, what do I want this button to do? So I'm going to go to events. I'm going to say, when this sprite is clicked, I want the following to happen. I'm going to go to looks, and I'm going to say switch the backdrop to brick breaker, because this is my brick breaker button. So when I click on the button, I want it to switch to the brick breaker background. Okay, next up, once I've clicked on the button and it's changed my background, I do not want to see the button there anymore. So I'm going to say hide after I've clicked on it. So now if I click on the green flag, I'm at my main menu, I click on the button and it will change my background and it will disappear. So I do not see the button. Then the button won't be in my way while I'm playing the game. But now, when I click on the green flag now, my button is not there. How am I going to get my button back? We need to fix this problem. So I'm going to go over to events again. And I'm going to tell this button that when the backdrop switches to main menu, I want to see this button. So I'm going to go to looks on the top left, and I'm going to take the show button or the show block and add it to my code. So now when I click on the green flag, I will have my button. I click on my button, it takes me to the brick breaker game. I click on the green flag and it takes me back to the main menu. Okay, but now there's going to be a different problem that pops up. As soon as we have a second button in here to take us to the Pong game, we need this button to hide itself when we are busy playing Pong. So I'm going to go back to events on the left hand side. And now I'm going to tell this button that when the backdrop switches, not to the main menu, but to Pong, then I need it to hide. I only want to see this button when I'm at the main menu. So when I click on this button, I want it to switch the backdrop to the brick breaker screen and then hide. But I want to see the button. It needs to show itself when the backdrop switches to main menu. And then I also need it to hide when we are busy playing the Pong game. So that is the only 3 pieces of code that you need for your brick breaker button. Next up is our Pong button. So now we go over to the little cat, we click on the paintbrush so that we have a new screen. Now I'm going to use a circle for my Pong button so I have a little bit of difference between the buttons. I'm going to make it red on this side and make it orange on this side. And then we can draw ourselves a nice circle. There we go, nice in the center. And then I can give it some, we can label it again as well. Write the name, click outside the block. We can increase the size and then click it back in the center. Now I move it here on the right hand side. I move it to where I want it to be. And now I can go give it the coding. So again, in the top left corner, we click on the word code to get to our coding. And now we start giving it some code. We're going to start off again. We go to events. We say, when this sprite is clicked, we move it over to the right hand side. We go over to looks and we say, when the backdrop or switch backdrop to Pong. So when we click on this button, it's going to switch the backdrop to Pong. So if I click on it, we can see there it switches to Pong. Click on the green flag, takes us back to the main menu. But now again, once we click on the button, we do not want to see it there anymore. So I can tell it to hide once it's switched the background. But now again, when I click on the green flag and I'm at the main menu, my button is not there because I need to tell it to come back. So I'm going to go to events. I'm going to tell it that when the backdrop switches to the main menu, I want to see the button, so it needs to show itself. So when I click on the green flag, I can see there is my button. I can click on my button, it takes me to Pong, click on the green flag, and it is there. If I click on Brick Breaker, Look at here. Look at this scoundrel hiding here. Okay, we need to fix this. This is a problem. We do not want to see the Pong button when we are playing Brick Breaker. So let's tell this button to hide. We go to events on the left hand side. We say when the backdrop switches to Pong this time. Remember, we've already told it when it goes to the main menu, we want to see it. But when it goes to Brick Breaker, when we are playing the Brick Breaker game, we want to hide this button so we do not see it here. So now if I go to Brick Breaker, I do not see my Pong button. If I click on Pong, I go to the Pong screen, click the green flag, I'm back at the main menu. And there you have two working buttons. How awesome is that? And now we can switch between our two different games. Okay, next step. Go to Brick Breaker. Because now we need to go create the paddle that we need to have to protect this goal line here at the bottom. So I'm going to go over to my little cat here at the bottom right. I'm going to click on the paintbrush. And now I'm going to draw myself a paddle. Now, paddle is just a rectangle. But now, we cannot draw it too big because then it's going to kind of defeat the purpose and you're going to have an unfair game. So as you can see here, there's my paddle. I can just move it just over my green line so it can protect that green line. Okay, as you can see there, it's not too big, not too small, just bigger than my goal line so it can move easily on top of the line. Okay, that is all we need for the drawing. And now we can go over to the coding to give it some code. So we need this paddle to be able to move to the left and to the right. In order to do that, we first need to know when we want to use it. So, when do we want to see this paddle? When we are playing the Brick Breaker game. So I'm going to go over to events here on the left hand side. And I'm going to tell this paddle that when the backdrop switches to Brick Breaker, because that is the game that we need this paddle for, I need this paddle to show itself. Okay, so let's test this. If I click on the green flag, if I click on Brick Breaker, my paddle is there. But what did you notice? If I click on the green flag now, my paddle is still on the main menu. So I need to fix this as well. So I'm going to go to events and I'm going to say that when the backdrop switches to main menu, I do not want to see this paddle here. It's not part of my main menu. So I go to looks and I say hide. So now when I click on the green flag, I no longer see my paddle, but once I click on Brick Breaker, my paddle is there. Now, I need to be able to move this paddle around once it has shown itself. So now I'm going to go over to control on the left hand side. So it's the orange button, the lighter orange one. There's a darker orange one down there, variables. We're going to use it in a bit, but for now we're on control. We start off by taking the third piece over there called forever and attaching it to the show. Because after it has shown itself, we want the following code to work the entire time. And that is going to be the two buttons that we use to move it to the left and to the right. So the fourth one under control says if blank, then the following. I'm going to need two of these under each other. Now be very careful. Do not put them inside each other like this. They need to be under each other. And also be careful not to put the forever inside the if. The if needs to be inside the forever, but underneath each other. Okay. Next up, we're going to go to sensing. The light blue button here on the left, sensing. And we're going to use the one right here in the middle. It says key space pressed. And I'm going to put it inside the block. And you see there, as soon as I bring this blue block close to that hole, it gives us a white line highlight. As soon as I can see that, I can leave the block and it will pop into place. I'm going to need the second one for the bottom one as well. And now I can decide on the two buttons that I want to use. I want to use the right arrow and I want to use the left arrow. So now it says that if the right arrow is pressed, then the following needs to happen. And now I'm going to go over to my motion block, the dark blue one at the top, motion on the left hand side. And now I'm going to go down the list until I find the block that says change X by 10. And I'm going to put it in under the right arrow. So if the key right arrow is pressed, then change X by 10. So now when I press the right arrow, if you look over here on the right hand side, if I press the right arrow, you can now see my paddle moves to the right. But now I need my paddle to be able to move to the left as well. I'm going to use this block again that says change X by 10, and I'm going to put it inside. But I can no longer make it change by 10. I now need the opposite. So I'm going to change it to minus 10. So now when I press the left arrow, my paddle goes to the left. So now I can move my paddle nicely on top of my line and have it protect my goal line. Nice and simple. So just to zoom out, these are the only pieces of code that you need for your brick breaker paddle. Okay, moving on to the next two. So I'm going to go down to my little cat again. So now what we need to do is we're going to go make 2 more paddles, but to protect the 2 goal lines of Pong. Because Brick Breaker is your 1-player game, you can play it on your own. And then the Pong game, I want you to go get your mother, go get your father, and try and challenge them in a game of Pong once you get it working. And then you can see who is the best. You can challenge and you can come back after the holiday and tell me who won how many matches against which parent. Okay, so now, next up, we're going to go to the little cat here in the bottom right again. We go click on the little paintbrush. Remember, if you click on the cat, do not stress. You just click back in the top left corner. You can go back, leave your mouse on the cat, and click on the paintbrush. Okay, so now we had 1 paddle to move, 1 paddle of horizontally. Now we're going to need 2 vertical paddles. So now I'm going to draw my paddle. I'm going to move it over the line where I want it. And now I can go to the coding. If you do not have to be as plain as I am being right now. I want you guys please be a little bit more colorful than I am. Let me set a better example here. Let me go back to the let's add a little bit of color. So we have a pink paddle on this side. So I'm going to just make it a darker pink. Do not make your paddles the same color as your goal line. Otherwise, it's going to interfere with the program. Okay, so I'm going to make it a little bit lighter than my goal line so I know where's my paddle and where's my goal line. Okay, now we need to give it the same pieces of code as the previous one with a little bit of changes here and there. Firstly, do we want to see this paddle on the main menu? Yes or no? No? Then we need to tell it that when the backdrop switches to the main menu, go to looks on the left hand side and we tell it to hide. We do not want to see this paddle now. So when I click on the green flag, I can see I do not see my pink paddle over here. But when I go to Pong, I now want to see my pink paddle. So now I'm going to go to events on the left hand side and I'm going to say that when the backdrop switches to Pong, then I go to looks on the left hand side and I tell it to show itself. So when I click on the green flag, I see no paddle. I click on Pong and I can see there is my paddle. Okay. Now, once we see the paddle, we now need to be able to move it around. So I'm going to go to my old friend control on the left hand side. The third one down is forever and I'm going to attach it to show. I'm going to need 2 ifs again. So the fourth one that says if blank then, I move it over and I put it inside my forever. Then I take another one and I place it underneath the first one. Then I go to sensing on the left hand side again. And I take this one that says key space pressed and I put it in the hole next to F again. Now, for the previous one, we used the right and the left arrow. For this one, we're going to be using the up and the down arrow. So, in order to get this paddle to move up, I'm going to need to go to motion on the left hand side. It's the first one here at the top, motion. Go down the list until you find change Y by 10. And you place it inside the first F. So now when I press the up arrow, I can see my paddle moves up. But now I need it to be able to move down. And what can you remember from the previous one? If we wanted to go to the opposite direction, we now need to minus it by the amount. So I'm going to say change Y by 10. But I'm going to change the 10 to minus 10. So that now you can see there on the left, I can move my paddle up and down. Okay, now to save us some time, here is a shortcut. Instead of having to go do all this over again for the opposite side, we can click here on our sprite where it says here sprite 4, which is my pink paddle. If I right click on it, I get the option to duplicate. And I'm just going to duplicate. And you can see there's the second one that pops up now. And I'm going to place it over the right hand side. All I need to do now is two things. Firstly, change the color. So I'm going to go up to costumes at the top. Make sure I'm on my bucket. Go to my color. Change it to purple. And I'm going to make sure it is a different purple than the goal line. So that you can see the difference between the paddle and the line. And now, we cannot use the same buttons for this second player. So we're going to have to choose different buttons. You can choose your own buttons. For now, I'm going to use the W button for up and the S button for down. Now, the children that play games on their computers at home, they know exactly why I've chosen W and S, because if you do not use the arrow buttons, it is normally WASD that you use to walk around. So to keep it nice and natural, now my pink paddle I can move with the up and down arrow, and my purple paddle I can move with the up, with the W and the S key. And there we have two working paddles. Now, we only have two characters left, but these two characters are the most important. Firstly, it's going to be the ball for the Brick Breaker game. So, we're going to go over to the little cat here at the bottom right. We go on to our paintbrush, and we are going to choose the circle button. You choose the color you want for this game. I'm going to choose a nice lime color. There's my ball. Please do not draw it too big. Rather smaller, bigger rather than bigger. So the ball can move around. Please also make sure that the ball is in the center. If I can just zoom in here again, you can see there's a little emblem. The ball has to be in the center, otherwise it will not bounce correctly. Okay, once we have done that, we can go over to the coding part. And now we can start giving it some code. Now, these next two are going to be the most difficult. So if you are still sitting here, I want you to maybe stand up, take a nice stretch, go run around the block quickly, or go run 2 laps in the yard, go chase around the dog, go take the dog for a walk, go play around with a younger sibling or older sibling, go do something active, and then come back to do the next 2 parts, because the next 2 parts are going to be the more difficult parts, and I want you to be at full concentration. So if you need to take a break, just pause the video, come back in a few, and then you can continue. If you want to continue on, here we go. Okay, so we're going to start off by saying when do we want this ball to appear, and that is when the backdrop switches to Brick Breaker. So when the background switches to Brick Breaker, that is when this ball needs to kick in, and that is when the game is going to start. Now this is going to be a very simple game. We just need to protect the goal line. Every time we do protect the goal line successfully, we increase our score by 1. As soon as the ball touches the green line, it's going to be game over. So, because we have a score in this game, we're going to need a new block called variables. So down the list here on the left, you go to the bright orange one, which says variables, and you click on it. Now, they have an example here that says my variable, but we are going to make a new variable. So you click on make a variable. We're going to type in the word score because we want to keep track of the score, but it's going to be for this sprite only, so it does not interfere with our Pong game. We say okay, and now you can see we have a new block there that says score. So every time we switch the backdrop switches to the to Brick Breaker, we want to show our score. Okay. We also want the score to be set at 0. So I'm going to say set score to 0 because we want the game to start fresh once we start. But we're not only going to have a score, we also want to keep track of our high score. So I'm going to make another variable. I'm going to type in high score. I say for this sprite only, and I click OK. But now I also want to see this when the backdrop switches to Brick Breaker. I'm going to say show the variable high score when the backdrop switches to Brick Breaker. So far, so good. Now we go to looks, and we're going to say show because we want to see the ball when the backdrop switches to the Brick Breaker game. Next up, we're going to need this ball now to point in a random direction before it shoots or flying in movement. So now I'm going to go to motion on the top right, motion, and I'm going to say point in direction 90. Okay. I'm going to add it to the list, but 90 is not a random because now it's always just going to shoot to the right. We need it to shoot in a random direction. Okay, so now for this, I'm going to go to operators, which is the green button on the left-hand side. Operators. Then I'm going to choose the one that says pick random 1 to 10, and I'm going to put it inside the point in direction. So now I can go add my own numbers, and I'm going to choose pick a random between -45 to 45. So it just chooses a random angle to move in. Okay. Next up, we're going to go to control, and now give it our old friend forever. So I go forever because while the game is running, or while we're on the Brick Breaker screen, I want the following code to work the entire time. Firstly, we need the ball to move around. So I'm going to go to motion, and I'm going to say move 10 steps. And as you can see there, the ball is now moving. If the ball is not moving, just click on the green flag, click back on the Brick Breaker, and you'll see the ball then start to move. And as you can see now, the ball is moving a bit wonky. That's because we haven't given it a very important rule, and that is that if it's on the edge, it needs to bounce. So just go down the list of motion blocks till you find if on edge bounce and add it to our coding blocks. And now you can see my ball is now bouncing nicely off the edges to stay in the game screen. Okay, next up, we need to go to control, and we're going to need two ifs. We're not going to set up 2 if rules for this game. So if blank, then put it underneath the if on edge bounds and another one under that. Let's start with the first one. I need to be able to protect my goal line using my paddle. So now by going to sensing, I'm going to use the first one that says touching mouse pointer, and I'm going to add it to my first if. But now I'm going to change this to say sprite number 3. Now sprite number 3, if you look over here on the right hand side, you can see sprite number 3 is my black paddle. So if I have my paddle here, sprite number 3, if it is touching sprite number 3, I want it to bounce off of sprite number 3. So firstly, I'm going to go to motion at the top. I'm going to say point in direction and add it inside my. But now again, I don't want it to just do this and get stuck. I want it to bounce in a random angle in an upward direction. So I'm going to go to operators on the right hand side, and I'm going to say again, pick random between 1 and 10. And now I'm going to change those numbers to -90 to 90. So it always goes in an upward direction and not a downward one. And as you can see there now on the left hand side, it's already working very smoothly and I can protect my goal line. But now there's a very important aspect here. Every time I protect my goal line, I want to increase my score, don't I? I want to see some improvement happening. So I'm going to go to variables on the left hand side, the bright orange one, variables. And I'm going to say change my score by 1 every time it touches sprite 3. So now every time I protect my goal line, you can see there in the top left corner, my score has increased by 1. Okay, now here comes the kicker. Once the ball touches the green line, it needs to be game over. So now, this is the new rule that we're going to make. I'm going to go to sensing on the left hand side, and I'm going to say touching color. And I'm going to add that into my if rule. But now this color needs to change to my color of my goal line. So I'm going to click on the color here on the left. I click on this little icon here on the bottom. And now I can go aim on my goal line here and select it. And you can see now the color is the same as my goal line. So what do I want to happen once it touches that line? I want the background to change, and I wanted then to go set my high score, because now my current high score needs to be set to 5. So when the ball touches the green line, it's going to be game over, and my high score is going to change. To do that, I'm going to do something new. So firstly, go to events on the left hand side, and the second to last one says broadcast message 1. I'm going to take that and put it inside the block. But message 1, I'm going to change. I'm going to click on the little arrow there, choose a new message, and type game over. That is the message that I want to go out. So when that ball touches the green line, I want to say, hey, listen here, game, it's game over. That is the message that I'm going to send. But this game doesn't know what game over means. So I need to tell it now, what do I want to happen once the game sees it's game over? So now I'm going to say, under events, the third from the bottom says, when message 1 is received. But I'm going to change it to the one that we just created, game over. Because now I need to tell the game that when it receives this message of game over, this is what needs to happen. So firstly, when it's game over, I need this ball to go to the center. So I'm going to go to motion at the top, and I'm going to say go to X, 0, Y, 0. So every time it touches the green line, it goes to the center of the page. And you can see there it's happening now. It's touching the green line. It's kicking in every time to the center of the page. Next up, I'm going to need it to rectify its angle so it can point in the direction 90. But now, I don't want the ball to just go and stand there. I want to be able to see that it is now game over, and that is why my ball is not moving. In order to do that, I'm going to make a new costume. So up here in the top left, I'm going to click on costumes. And under the costume one, I'm going to go down till I find my little cat. Click on the paintbrush, and now I have a second costume. For this second costume, I'm only going to type in the word game over. Make it nice and big. And there you have it. So now I have two costumes. Costume 1 is the brick breaker ball, and costume 2 is the game over screen. So that when I go to my code, I can now tell it here that when it is game over, under looks, I want the costume to switch to costume 2. Because costume 2, if I look at costumes, costume 2 is my game over, costume 1 is the ball. So that when I receive game over, it goes to costume 2, which is game over. But when I'm playing the game, I want it to be on the ball. So I'm going to say switch 1 just underneath or just before show, just before it shows itself. I need to make sure that the ball goes to the costume 1, which is the ball. So ball costume 1, game over costume 2. So when the game starts, it's costume 1, and when it is game over, it's going to be costume 2. Next up, I need to be able to change my high score. For that, we're going to have to set up a new rule. So I'm going to go to events. Apologies, I'm going to go to control. I'm going to take if blank then, and I'm going to place it underneath the switch costume. Now I'm going to go to operators, the green one, operators, and I'm going to take the greater than 50 and put it inside the if block. But now, the rule that I want to set up is for this game to check every time my score is higher than my high score at the end of the game, I need my high score to replace my current score. Does that make sense? So when I'm playing the game, if I have a new high score of 3, I need the game to go and check. If my current high score is 5 and my new score is 7, is my new score higher than my high score? If it is, then it needs to replace my score. So for this, I'm going to go to variables. And I'm going to take the first one here, score, and I'm going to put it inside there to say that if the score is greater than my high score, so I take the high score block and I put it in there, then the following needs to happen. So if the score is greater than the high score, then set the high score to my new score. So if the score is greater than the high score, then set the high score to the score. Now I know this sounds very confusing, boys and girls, but all this rule does, it's going to check that if we are now playing the game and I get that there's a score of 1, now I get a score of 2. As soon as the ball touches the green line, the game is now going to check, was my high score greater than my score? If not, it's going to replace it. So now my current high score is 2. So now if I can get a score that is higher than my high score and it is game over, it's going to then replace my high score. It is just so that we always have an up-to-date high score. Next up, after all this happens, we're going to need the game to tell the game to stop. So for this, we're going to go to control, And the fourth one from last says stop all. And that's all we need to do. So now when I play my game and my ball touches the green line, it's going to say game over and I cannot do anything else. My game is now stuck because it is game over. Okay. Now, we forgot one important thing because look here, when I click on the green flag, now I can see game over here on my screen. When I go to Brick Breaker, everything is fine. But now when I go to the main menu, I need to fix this. I do not want to see game over or the score or the high score when I'm at the main menu. So in order to fix this, I need to go to events. I'm going to say that when the backdrop switches to main menu, I want the following to happen. Firstly, the ball needs to hide itself. I do not want to see the ball when we are playing the game. When we are on the main menu, we do not want to see the ball. We also do not want to see the variable. So I'm going to go to variables, the orange one here at the bottom, and I'm going to say hide the variable high score, but also hide the variable score. So that when I click on the green flag, I do not see my Brick Breaker counters. When I click on Brick Breaker, my score and my high score is there. The game is working. I can play my game. I can now see if I can maybe get a new high score. Let's get a score of 4. And now once the ball touches the green line, it is game over. My high score has increased to my new score. And we have a working game. Now, the same way we programmed the letter M to take us to the main menu, I want us to program a letter to restart the game. Now, restart starts with the letter R, so let's use that. So when I go to events, I'm going to say when the space key is pressed, but I'm going to change it to say the R key. So when the R key is pressed, I want the backdrop. So I go to looks on the left-hand side, and I'm going to say switch the backdrop to Brick Breaker. Because remember, when the backdrop switches to Brick Breaker, this code kicks in. So now when I press the letter R, it just resets my code and I can restart my game. I can play again. I get 3. Oh no, it's game over. I press the letter R. I can just restart and then reattempt a new high score. And there we have a working Brick Breaker game. So these are the only pieces of code that you need to have a working Brick Breaker game. When the backdrop switches to Brick Breaker, we want to show both our variables and we want to set the score to 0. We want to switch the costume to the ball costume and we want to make sure it shows itself. We want to point it in a random direction between -45 and 45. And then we want it to start moving. We want to make sure if it's on the edge, it will bounce. We want to make sure that when it is touching my paddle, which is sprite 3, then it will point in a different direction and it will change the score. When the ball touches the green, which is the goal line, it will broadcast the message game over. The message game over has the following code. Take the ball to the center of the page, point it in the right direction, switch it to the game over costume, and check the score. And there you have it. That is all we need for the Brick Breaker game. Now, lastly is going to be our Pong game. Now, this one is going to be also a little bit difficult and a little bit different. So, firstly, we need a ball. So I'm going to go to my cat here at the bottom left. I click on the paintbrush and I click on a circle. Let's choose a nice color which is going to stand out nicely. Let's take a nice bright green. Ooh, no, that's a bit oval shaped. Let me draw a proper circle. There we go. Please remember to make sure that it is in the center. Very easy to move around. You can see there's the little angle. It shows you where the center of the ball is, and you can make sure it locks on there. Next up, we go to our code. Now, we have 2 players on this game. We have a pink player and a purple player. Or if you have 2 different colors, let's say you have a blue paddle and a green paddle, you have a blue player and a green player. But to make it easier for us all, let's just call it player 1 and player 2. So firstly, I'm going to go to my variables. So I'm going to go to the bright orange one here at the bottom where it says variables. And now I'm going to make 2 new variables. So I'm going to have a player 1 score and a player 2 score. Or you can use the color of your paddles. For me, it will be pink and purple. So I'll have a pink score and a purple score. Or if you have a blue and a green one, you can have a green score and a blue score. For me, I have pink and purple, so I'm going to say make a variable. I'm going to say pink score for this sprite only, and I click OK. So now I have my pink scores over here. I have another one. I say make a variable. This one is going to be the purple score for this sprite only. Now the purple score, I'm just going to move over here to the right hand side so that I have the pink score above him and the purple score above him. Okay, now first things first. When do I want to see the ball? When don't I want to see the ball? If I go to events on the left hand side, first up, when the backdrop switches to the main menu, do we want to see the ball? No. So I'm going to say hide this sprite when we go to the main menu. So when I go to the main menu, I can see the ball is gone and we're going to bring it back now. Okay. Do I want to see my variables on the main menu? No. So I'm going to go to variables and I'm going to say hide pink score and hide purple score. So when I click on the green flag, everything is nice and normal. But now when I click on Pong and the backdrop switches to Pong, this is when I want my code to work. So I'm going to say events when the backdrop switches to Pong. First things first, I want to see the ball. Second, I want to see the variables. So I'm going to go to variables, the bright orange one, and I'm going to say show me pink score and show me purple score. But now we do not want to leave off this game where we left off. We don't want to start this game where we left off the previous one. So I'm going to make sure to say to set the pink score to 0, but also set the purple score to 0. Now keep in mind, if you have different names, do not stress. You can use the colors of your paddles, or you can have player 1 and player 2 like I suggested. So just remember to set both variable score to 0. Okay. Next up, we need to make sure the ball goes to the center of the page. So we're going to say, firstly, we go to motion in the top right. Go down the list until you find go to X, Y. We change it to 0, 0. So it says go to X0, Y0. It will go to the center of the page then. And now we can tell it to start moving around. But wait. First, we need to tell it where to point. So I'm going to say point in direction. But now, can we just make it point to the right? Otherwise, it will always go to the purple side. And that's not fair. We need it to go to a random side, if possible. So firstly, we're going to say operators, which is the green one. We're going to say pick random 1 to 10. Put it inside the point in direction. And then we're going to change it to minus 45 and 45. Now, once we've pointed it in a direction, now we can give it the final pieces of code. So firstly, we're going to go to control And we're going to get our old friend forever, because now forever the following code needs to work while we are playing the game. And we are going to have 4 rules for this one. So the fourth one that says if blank then, we're going to put 4 of them inside this forever. Yes, 4 of them. We're going to have 4 rules. Please make sure to put them under each other and not inside each other. Otherwise, you're going to have a Russian nesting doll situation like this. Please make sure to put them underneath each other. Okay, let's start off by telling this ball when to bounce off the paddles. So firstly, I'm going to go to sensing. I'm going to say the first one here, it says touching mouse pointer, and I'm going to put it inside the first 2 if rules. But now, I first need to go and check. My pink paddle is sprite 4. So I'm going to say when it is touching sprite 4. My purple paddle is called sprite 5. So if it is touching sprite 5, that is my 2 paddles. So when it's touching the pink paddle, which is sprite 4, it's going to do something. And when it's touching sprite 5, which is the purple paddle, it's also going to do something. Okay. Now, when it is touching the pink paddle, I need to go to motion at the top left, motion, and I'm going to say turn 15 degrees. But the 15 degrees I'm going to change to 85. So that when it touches the pink paddle, it turns to the right 85 degrees. When it touches the purple paddle, it's going to turn to the left 85 degrees. So now when the ball touches the paddle, it'll now turn in the opposite direction it was coming from. Okay, very straightforward. Now the ball will be able to bounce off the paddles. But now, our ball is not moving around yet. We've pointed it in a direction. We've told it when to bounce off the paddles. We need to tell it how to move around. So under motion, at the top, we're going to say move 10 steps. And we put it above our rules. And you can see there it's moving around. But what's another rule we need? We need to say if it's on the edge, bounce. And now we can see it bouncing around. When it touches my paddles, it'll turn in the opposite direction and bounce off my paddles. And now you and one of your parents can maybe start testing around to see if you guys can get the ball past each other. But in order to keep track of our scores, we're going to need 2 more rules. Okay, here we go. It's starting to get exciting. Remember, if your ball is not moving around, all you need to do is click on the green flag, go to the main menu again, click on Pong, and it will reset your code. Sometimes the code just needs to be reset once you've built it. Okay. The final 2 rules we need to make is to keep track of the score. So we need to tell this game that when the ball touches the pink line, purple gets a score. When the ball touches the purple line, pink is going to get a score. So firstly, we go to sensing on the left-hand side. The second one says touching color. And I'm going to add it to my second 2 if rules. Firstly, I'm going to choose the purple color, the line. Remember now, please do not aim onto the color of your paddle. You need to aim it on the color of your goal line. Nextly, change it to the pink. And now I have it. So when it is touching the purple color, pink is going to get the score. So the first thing that needs to happen is I go to variables and I'm going to say change the pink score by 1. Because it touched the purple line, purple didn't protect its goal, so pink gets the point. When it touches the pink line, purple is going to get the point. So we're going to say change purple score by 1. What we also want is the ball to go back to the center once it touches the goal line so the game can continue. So now we can say motion, go to 0, 0, and put it above change score. And we do this for both. So every time it touches one of the lines, it'll just reset to the middle and the game will continue on. What we can do to give us maybe a second to process who got the point is we can go to control. And the first one says wait 1 second. And we can put it underneath the go to. So now every time it touches the line, it'll give us a second to ready up before the ball starts to move again. Now, all we can do now to add a little pizzazz to our game is we can go over to looks and we can say hello for 2 seconds, pop it in there, and now we can say that when it touches the purple line, pink gets a score. So we're going to say point to pink. And we're going to only say it for half a second, so it doesn't take up too much time. Now we're also going to do the same, say hello for 2 seconds, but we're going to say a point to purple for 0.5 seconds. So I just want to capitalize that P. So now it's going to touch the line, it's going to tell you who gets the point, and it's going to reset so the game can continue. And there you have a working Pong game. As simple as that. Now, hopefully this is working, and hopefully you all got someone to come and test it with you. If you want to reset the scores, you just click on the green flag, go to the main menu, open up your Pong again, and you'll see the score will reset. And there you have a working game. You have Brick Breaker and you have Pong. I hope you all managed to do this with the video. Hopefully, yeah, you guys can do this now at your own pace. So rewatch the video, pause the video, go back, rewatch it. Hopefully this is enough to help you all understand this work a little bit better. I know there were a lot of time we missed out on because of load shedding. And last year, there was a lot of you that struggled with this work. There's still some of you that struggle with this work now today. And I hope this video can ease your pain a little bit with an extra explanation. I hope you all are enjoying the holiday. I'm still here at your service. If you guys need my help with anything, please ask your parents to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to help. Thank you and have a nice day.